Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Hi, and welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm your host, Catherine Erdley, as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club, which is my membership group for product businesses. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com. And if you use the code 10podcast, that's 10podcast, you can get £10 off your first month. What I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about some of the factors that are impacting the retail industry right now, and more specifically, what that means for your business and how you can navigate what feels like a very difficult time right now. If you want to see the full presentation, I did this as a video, as a webinar a couple of weeks ago, then you can go ahead and go to resilientretailclub.com/grow 2022 and you can sign up to get the full replay. But I'm going to kind of run you through some of the key points. The reason I wanted to put this presentation together was because I have had so many conversations with both members of the club, as well as clients, as well as other small business owners. And for a lot of people, it's feeling particularly concerning right now. Well, I did an episode a few weeks ago about the rising cost of living. I know that that's something that we've already talked about. But I think even since then, since that episode came out, I think that inflation has continued to climb. There's been so much else going on in terms of geopolitical world events. And I think that as a result, it has felt even more concerning and worrying for a lot of business owners. If you're listening to this and things are going well, then that's fantastic. I don't like to immediately assume everything is doom and gloom, but this episode is really for you if you feel like things have been a bit quiet and you're worrying if it's you. And I'm here to say that you're not alone. It's definitely something a lot of people have felt. And more importantly, I wanted to kind of give you a big picture and talk about some of the key things that are impacting the industry right now. So I'm going to run through 5, and they are consumer confidence, rising prices, the evolution of online, conscious consumerism, and the growth of retention over acquisition. So let's start off with consumer confidence. So consumer confidence is an indicator that is run once a month. It is basically a survey of a cross-section of consumers, asking them how optimistic they feel about the likelihood of the economy improving over the next 12 months. And if you look at this information, it's pretty easy to find. Unfortunately, on a podcast, I can't show you a graph, which is my preferred way to show information like this. But basically what you can see is that currently consumer confidence has dropped to a pretty significant low. I think the last time it was as low as it currently is was around the time of when the pandemic first happened. And when the first lockdowns happened, people were very concerned because it was a huge shift and a huge change. So it's the lowest that it's been since early 2020, and it's set to dip further. But the good news is that it is set to rebound towards the end of the year. So fingers crossed. But what you can really see when you look at this, as I said, if you Google consumer confidence by month, you'll see the graph that I'm talking about. It's really showing you that the customer's mindset at the moment is very much one of low confidence. And this has a big impact on purchasing behavior. It particularly has impact on purchasing behavior when it comes to larger purchases such as cars or houses or some of the higher ticket items. But it also has an impact on overall purchasing. It's fairly easy to understand why, because as with so many of these things, if you put yourself in your customer's shoes, and so many of us start businesses because we want to sell things that we want to buy, then you can easily think about how you're feeling and what's on your mind in terms of cost of living and everything else. And it's very easy to understand what is happening for your customers. What are they thinking about? And I think that once you start envisaging that your customer has low confidence right now, it, number one, helps you stop feeling like it's something to do with you or your business. And number two, it helps you understand perhaps the angle that you have to come at when you're talking to your customers. So if you were talking to a person who had low confidence, you might have more of a reassuring tone. You might be more focused on persuasion as opposed to hard demands, for example. And I think that this really comes into the messaging and the way of talking to customers right now as well. For example, will you have to repeat your messaging more often than ever before? I've had a few people tell me that they had a launch that perhaps was set up in exactly the same way as the launch was set up previously, but they didn't see the same result. And what I have seen is where people have had success with their launches is they've almost gone out there and said things twice as many times as they might otherwise have said them, because they know that customers are needing to hear things more than once to feel like they're ready to take that next step and make a purchase. So have that in the back of your mind. Really think about your customer. And one of the big things I think that's really important right now is empathy, putting yourself in your customer's shoes. If you're feeling stuck, if you're not sure where to start, why not draw yourself a mind map? I'm laughing because I quite often do this as a little diagram, and it's a stick figure and it's a person. My drawing's terrible, by the way, but it just helps me focus on the fact that I'm thinking about a person and what they're thinking about. So I draw a thought bubble, and then I am able to start filling that thought bubble in. What is on my customer's mind right now? What are they thinking about? And it's the same thing for you, that empathy. We've been talking about this ever since the pandemic hit, that it's no longer about B2B or B2C. It's about H to H, human to human. And I think that that comes into it now as well. The most important conversation that's going on right now is the one that's happening inside your customer's head. And even just a small sprinkling of that, even just a small nod and an acknowledgement of what your customer's going through can go a long way to building those bridges and helping them feel like you understand where they're coming from, and also help build that reassurance, which is needed more than ever when people are feeling nervous and low confidence. The other thing to think about is that when people are feeling low confidence and they're not purchasing as much as they might otherwise do, they're maybe not spending as much, they're avoiding big purchases, they're probably cutting back on some of their spontaneous spending as well. The occasions, the triggers for spending, so things like birthdays, christening, wedding, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, and dare I say it, Christmas, these are all even more important than ever because, again, bring it back to your own life. If you're sticking to a budget, you're looking at trying to keep a lid on your spending because you're not feeling confident about how the rest of the year is going to be going, then you may well not treat yourself to something. But if it's your friend's birthday or your child's birthday, of course you're going to be spending on them. So these triggers, these moments that are more likely to spark a purchase, they become even more important than ever. So even if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily focus on occasions in your business, think about that element. Think about the gift giving element. Think about making it really obvious for a customer that if they land on your website and they're looking for a birthday present, that they can find a gift option. And especially make sure that you spend the time getting ready for the biggest occasion of them all, Christmas. I know it's super early to be talking about this, but just be aware that if spending becomes more constricted outside of occasions, then as business owners, we need to be even more focused than ever on thinking about what is actually going to trigger that purchase with a customer. So then the second piece, if the first one is about consumer confidence, the second piece, which is really goes hand in hand with consumer confidence, is the impact of rising prices. The February inflation figures came out at 6.2%, which is a historic high. A lot of people were waiting to hear what the Chancellor's mini statement or mini budget was going to be. Was he going to basically put anything into place to try and curb inflation? And it didn't really feel, from everything that I've read, the commentary that I've read, that people felt that he had really done that much to curb the inflation. So people are still spending. If you look at the actual sales, the retail sales month on month, you can see that people are still spending. But one of the things that is slightly muddying that picture is the fact that prices are going up. So people are perhaps not spending as much on non-essentials because the cost of essentials is going up. So what does that mean for you? As I said, I had a podcast episode on this a couple of weeks ago, so do definitely go and give that a listen. But I think from a business perspective, it means that you have to go and check all of your costs if you haven't done so recently. Check your competitors' prices to see whether or not the whole market is shifting. But I think more importantly, from how you talk to your customers, you want to really be focusing now on value. So a cautious customer that is worried about money really needs reassurance that their money will be well spent with you. I talk about something called the value triangle, and that is really about the different elements that make up people's perception of value. The value triangle has 3 points on it that make up value. The first one is the price, which definitely does play a role. We all know that we have a certain price in mind when we're thinking about goods. But one of the big impactors on whether or not people believe that something is good value is whether or not it's great quality. So, for example, you could have 2 pens. One is a £1 pen, and that is disposable. And it's great value because it's something cheap and cheerful, easy to pick up. And you know that it's going to work for you for as long as you need it. It can kick around in your bag and it's all going to be fine. It makes absolute sense to pay £1 for it because of the way that it's made, its expected lifespan and everything else. Equally, you can have a fountain pen that costs £60 that is considered good value by the customer because of the quality of the craftsmanship, of the fact that it is something that makes you feel really special when you're using it. And maybe you even think, well, this could be something that I hand on to my children later on, or something that I'll be using for a really long time. So the quality is something that really has an impact on whether or not people believe that the price that they're paying for something represents good value. So don't forget to think about that when you are talking about your products. Your customer needs reassurance, and they also need to believe that what they're purchasing from you is good value. And that doesn't mean the price has to be low. Good value and cheap are not the same thing at all. It's about the price being reflective of the quality and the desirability. That's the third element of the value triangle, the desirability of the product that they're purchasing from you. Desirability is a tough one. It is an element that is very hard to quantify because it's that sort of intangible thing that makes somebody just go, oh yes, I must buy that. If you've got that in your products, it's going to help you hugely, even at times when people are worried about their spending, because that's what really will help people make the decision to purchase. I was talking to Michelle Ovens, who is the founder of Small Business Britain, and she was talking about the fact that she purchased a pair of mint green Birkenstock sandals for herself because she felt like the colour was really cheerful and she wanted something to brighten up her day. Quality comes into that for sure. Birkenstock is a very well-known, well-respected brand when it comes to quality, but absolutely there was an element of that desirability. So in what way can you delight your customer? What way can you bring them a bit of joy at times like this and brighten their day? And definitely thinking about how you solve their problems. Everybody who sells things solves problems. So what problems are you solving for your customer and how can you communicate that with them? The third element is looking at the evolution of online selling, and it just keeps going. So again, I can't show you my graph, which is a shame. Come along to resilientretailclub.com/grow2022. You can watch the video and you can see the graphs. But in this graph, it's basically showing how online sales as a percentage of total retail sales, for every pound spent in retail, what percentage or how many pennies are spent online. You can see that this was tracking upwards from the birth of e-commerce, which is 1995, and how it jumped up massively during the pandemic. It has dropped back down. So at the very peak, we were talking about the percentage being nearly to 40%, so about 38%. So for every pound spent when the shops were shut, for the most part, then 38p was being spent online. And now we're back down to about 28p. So 28% of all sales happening online. But that is still ahead of where we were before the pandemic, which was about 19%. So we've accelerated forward what experts estimate to be at around 3 years in terms of the pandemic. So online just keeps getting more important, and it's something that we have to keep thinking about. But I would say that the key thing for me here and what I've really seen shift And I know it's tough when you feel like, okay, I've just got my head around having a website, having social media, everything else, getting that all up and running. I really feel like online is shifting and the way that we're buying online is shifting. And part of that is this move towards video content. So video content is being pushed by every single social media platform, from everything from Pinterest having idea pins and video pins to TikTok, which is, of course, all video content, Instagram pushing Reels, and YouTube pushing short content, YouTube Shorts, things like that. So video content is really becoming part of how people are experiencing the online world, and it's also becoming part of how people are purchasing. Now, the great news is the video is actually a really, really good medium to sell products on, because you can explain so much more about them in a way that you can't on a static photo. And it's also really accessible because you basically just need a smartphone and an internet connection, and that's it. You can create content for the internet. It's not expected that it's going to be polished. So there's lots of benefits for small businesses, but the flip side, of course, is just getting your head around that. And I think it's part of this move towards a more immersive internet. So we spoke about the Metaverse, for example, previously, talking about creator content as well, creator commerce last week. So these are all examples of how people are becoming more interactive with their online presence. And it's not so much about shopping from a series of static images. Video is playing a huge part in people's conversion journey and their understanding about products. And so it's definitely something that I think for small business owners is really have to think about how you can make it work for you. Live streaming as well is something else that has really been growing in popularity, and it's estimated to be the fastest growing element of e-commerce at the moment is live streaming. So people actually selling on video and either creating exclusive products for the live stream, or perhaps doing new season launches on live streams, or lots of fun things like people selling pick and mix sweets on live stream where you can actually watch them scooping them out on the camera. This is all about how these lines between entertainment and shopping are really blurring. People want to watch their favorite creators, their favorite YouTubers, for example, and then may buy their new hoodie, their new book. They want to watch somebody actually selling on screen and then being able to purchase through an app as they are watching. So I think, again, online is just getting more important, but it's changing. It's becoming more immersive. It's becoming more interactive. So think about how that could work for you. Even if all you're doing at the moment is keeping your eyes open and thinking about what that might look for your business, this is all really important. And it's all really important that you keep going with it and keep thinking about what you can do and keep trialing new things. Try some live selling to see what happens, or try, if you're doing a product launch, what happens if you launch it live and talk about it on screen? How can that change the nature of what you're doing? The fourth element is conscious consumerism. Conscious consumerism is impacting retail because people are still looking to influence their communities and their environment through their purchases, and it's becoming more and more important and more of a driving factor. And all of the statistics around conscious consumerism really point to how that this is getting more and more important. And I think the last statistic I saw was around 90% of people are now saying that they are concerned about the environmental impact of a product before they purchase it. So a huge percentage of people who are buying and shopping are looking for not just products that do no harm, but they're actually now looking for products that do good. So again, thinking about what does that mean for your business? How could circularity, for example, fit into your business model, where instead of just simply selling an item to somebody, you could expect that it might come back and you could refill it or repair it. Lots of different things that you could do to encourage people to effectively not let your products end up in landfill. And we've had some great examples on the podcast about this, from Little Loop rental program to Wild Books and their subscription and refill models. So there's lots of different ways that you don't have to be a huge business in order to start really thinking about circularity. But it's just, again, another movement, another shift that keeps on going, that the customer's getting more concerned. They don't just want to see it that it's doing no harm. They want to see it being regenerative. They want to see things that are actually doing good in this world. And I think what's really been interesting about the recent events in Ukraine has been the number of small businesses that have stepped up and have raised money, whether it's been doing online competitions or whether they've been donating a percentage of sales of a particular product to benefit people like the Red Cross, for example. And I do wonder if that's going to be, again, become part of what people expect to see from businesses. You saw some really big businesses, people like John Lewis making statements. We've seen all kinds of big multinationals pulling out of Russia, for example, in support of the people in Ukraine. And I think this all points to this movement that every business, including the big businesses, are realizing that their customers are starting to hold them accountable for the way that they act and what they do. And I think that, again, another way to make the most of 2022 and this shift in this movement is thinking about your values and how well you're communicating that to your customer. Not to say that everybody has to come out and have a product that raises money. If that's not something you feel able or confident to do, then don't feel like you have to. But I think the key thing here is really just understanding that the customer is expecting more and more in terms of what they want to see from the businesses that they support. So then the final point that's impacting the retail industry is really all about acquisition and organic reach. So this has been getting more complicated and certainly anecdotally talking to people that I work with, a lot of people have found their ads, their social media ads have been performing at a lower level than last year. I was really surprised to see Shopify putting out an ad on Instagram to promote their report, The Future of Commerce, which talked about, the ad actually said this ad is half as effective as last year, which I thought was quite staggering to see from a brand as big as Shopify. So we know that acquisition is getting harder, which then flips to this idea of, well, does it then become about retention? And I get a lot of research and commentary sent to me as part of my role as a Forbes contributor. I get pitched a lot of stories and information. And I've had several pieces now which are saying things like, retention is the new acquisition. So really what they're saying, smart businesses are focusing on now is really their warm audience, which, to be fair, is something that I've been saying for a long time, that's really where the money is in your business. But keep having a look at your warm audience and make sure that you've got a plan for really how you talk to them on an ongoing basis. 7 steps to move forward then. If you want to take action to grow your sales in the current climate. And let's face it, it's not been easy for everybody. So the first thing I would say is understand your customer, really make sure that you're putting yourself in their shoes. Number 2 is be clear on your value. What is the value of the products that you sell and how do you communicate that? Number 3, be clear on your values. So what do you stand for as a business and how do you talk about that to your customers? Number 4, make sure you have a special focus on your loyal customers, whether that's through having a loyalty scheme or perhaps some email marketing systems such as Klaviyo, for example, that allow you to kind of hone in and focus in on your most engaged customers. Number 5, test everything. I do think there's going to be an element to which if things that you're doing before aren't working so well, we're just going to have to shake things up and see what happens. Try new sales channels, new messaging, new products. If you've got the ability to introduce new things, just try something different and see what sticks. Number 6, focus on those occasions. Christmas is coming and summer's a great place to start thinking about it. So, for example, a lot of long lead publications, you may be needing to pitch them in May or June. So get yourself ready. And then the final piece is really one of the most important things for businesses to do is really to avoid getting frozen. So curiosity is such an underrated quality in an entrepreneur. And I think that that's what we're all called upon to be, is curious. How can we try new things? What happens if we try this versus what happened before? Don't get stuck in this fear or freeze. And one of the things that I talk about is the cycle of doom. So the cycle of doom involves sales slowing down, confidence getting lost, you take less action, and then you go around again. Sales slow down, you lose confidence, you take less action, and before you know it, you're stuck in the cycle of doom. So if you feel like you're stuck, start generating some ideas. Why not take 10 minutes, set a timer, just brainstorm as many ideas as you can to move forward, and then select one thing that you're going to do and take that action, because that's how you get out of the cycle of doom, is you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I also like to think about times like these as strengthening. It's like when you go to the gym, if you lift the heavy weights now, then next time when you're lifting something lighter, it's going to be that much easier. And I think that's the thing. We really need to be, as business owners, we're all called upon to be even better when times are tough, really even more focused on our customers, even more devoted to creating products that we believe that they'll love, even more innovative and willing to try new things when it comes to our marketing and our messaging. And if we can do that, then we'll build up that strength. And then when times are a little bit easier and consumer confidence does rebound, then we'll be well placed to take advantage of it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Do take a moment to rate and review the podcast if you have a second. It's so much appreciated. I really cannot tell you how much I appreciate any ratings or reviews. You can do it on Spotify through the app, or you can do it on iTunes. And of course, if you follow the podcast or subscribe, you'll be the first to know about every new episode. And why not hop over to Instagram at Resilient Retail Club, say hello, let me know what you thought about today's episode. Let me know what your key takeaways are and what you're going to be doing to grow your sales in 2022. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.